I come from a convent school, and back in those days, my school librarian would never allow me to touch books or any one of us in the class. She, in her broken English, would tell us, "You come, you sit, do touch your books." And she would remind us over and over, as almost I think all the teachers do, your class was class in last 5 years. Well, I was the only person who was allowed to pick fiction books from a shelf. And that's when I knew that I'm sort of like a chosen one, probably. I'm kidding. She one day told me that, hey, you pick up a book and read it. So I went to the fiction section of my library and picked up my first novel titled Kidnapped by Robert Louis Stevenson. A month later, I picked up The Hound of Baskervilles, a Sherlock Holmes mystery. A month later, when our school library was under construction, I stole 4 hardcovers and 3 paperbacks from a stack of unguarded books. And that's when I sort of knew that either you will let me read or I will steal and read. But whatever the case will be, I will pick up a book and I will read. Now, back in those days, AI wasn't even a part of the conversation. You actually had to sit through complex paragraphs, complex stories, complex poetries, so you could understand them or wait at least for a day so you could go back, to your class next day and ask your teacher. And then came AI. A faster way to generate an essay, a faster way to generate some story, a faster way to write, and a great shortcut when it comes to tight deadlines. And I went hard on AI. I used it day in, day out, until I realized a very specific problem. That AI is not only asking us to outsource its tasks from it, but it's also asking us to outsource our thoughts and our thinking from AI itself. And that's when I understood that there is a much bigger impact of AI that is happening on our body and mind. To start with, AI is today leading to the death of complex thinking, or what you and I call critical thinking. There was a study done by MIT's Media Lab over 60 students aged between 18 and 39, and they were asked to write an essay, just a simple essay. Some using AI, some using Google, and some using no tools at all. And what they found? That the students who used no tools at all showed the highest cognitive activity in their mind, while the students who used either AI or some form of tool, they showed the least. Not because they were not intelligent or they were not smart enough, but simply because someone else was thinking for them. Today, AI is producing a massive amount of content. A very recent study showed that nearly 85% of content or media that you consume either on Google or Instagram is AI generated today. Now, there is one major problem that it's leading to, and that is the death of language. So when AI produces content, it is also standardizing the language that we use, leading to the death of language. You might have noticed suddenly that there are a few set of words that are popping up everywhere. Words like uncover, regulate, or leverage, seamless, something like unbound, a set of words that you see everywhere. I think the most common one you will notice is tapestry. A tapestry of this or a tapestry of that, where this meets that. Every time you ask AI something, where imagination meets wings, where imagination does this, it's the same line popping up everywhere. Now, while there is no problem in using such things, but imagine what happens if everyone in the world start using only a particular set of words. We all use the same set of dictionary, the same set of words. What happens is that our awkwardness, the oohs and the ahs of our language that makes us human being eventually goes away. Just imagine that you walk into a room and every person in the room is sounding like AI. I'm not sure about you, but I would lose it. But there is one place where AI is having the worst impact, and you wouldn't even realize it's having, and that is your learning. Today we see AI as a way of accessing information, accessing knowledge. But AI is also interfering how we make our memories. In a very tight research done over 1,500 people, where research studied about how AI on our minds processes the information that is generated by AI, What they found is that nearly 36.4% of people who consumed AI-generated information experience memory distortions or false memories. Now, what that means is that in 1 out of 3 people, they experienced a memory that they actually never lived. So now in their mind, they have a memory distortion that actually never happened to them. And the worst, that these memory distortions, nearly 87% of them lasted for more than 3 weeks straight. That means it became their permanent memory, which also means that now they remember a certain moment in their life that actually never happened with them. Why does it happen? Simply because when AI gives you replies and answers or solutions that are fluent, that are confident, and that are completely emotionally neutral, your brain accepts them without any form of resistance or question. It weakens your brain system that helps you understand the difference between what is right, what is wrong, what is human made, what is AI generated. And this is not only affecting our memory, it is also affecting something that makes us human, and that is our empathy. And that brings me to storytelling. For centuries, we have connected with each other through stories. Stories requires emotion, attention, and time. But when our memories are altered, when our memories are optimized, when they are changed, when they are standardized, when they are generated by an AI system, then these stories that are based on our memories, they stop connecting with each other. And that leads to the death of something very important, that is empathy. Imagine that you wake up tomorrow and suddenly no one relates to your problem. No one understands what's going on in your lives. It's sad to say that we are already living in one of that world where there are thousands suffering and we can never relate to them. But if this goes on, then there might be chances that even your best friend, someone who you would call at 2 a.m. in the night, stops understanding you. And that is sort of scary. But there is one simple solution to this problem. One simple and one immediate solution to this problem. And that, my friends, is literature. Literature is a way that we are connecting with each other for the longest time. We have studied literature since we grew up. We have had memories of our grandmothers telling us what's going on, what their lives were like. Literature is how we have linked with each other. In 2019, my family went through a major personal crisis. During that time of 8 months, we were not allowed to step out of our home. Back in those days, or specifically that time duration, I only had one friend, and that was a book titled The Complete Stories of Sherlock Holmes, 4 novels and 58 stories. It was an Oxford Dictionary thick book, nearly 1,300 pages, and that was the only book or only companion I had for nearly 8 months. I read it over and over and over and over. Even today, when I feel like that my life is not worth living, that I'm good for nothing, that I'm always out of place, I'm always the awkward out, I feel extremely lonely. If there's one thing that I immediately reach out is to a poetry book that is always there on my nightside table. I always reach out to Sir Dickinson or some Mary Oliver or someone that makes me feel that, hey, somewhere someone has also suffered or also goes in the way that I am feeling. What I have realized over the duration of reading for nearly 7 years that there is a kind of God, if you want to say, in the act of reading. When you pick up a book or you go to a cafe, to your table, to your sofa, to your couch, you open an alley that is named after you, and only you can access it. And today when I look back to the time in 2019, I have realized that it was not escapism that I did through reading that saved me. It wasn't some form of distraction. It was inheritance. You see, reading is not something that you and I have picked up along the way. Reading is not what we usually call a pastime activity, right? Before Constitution, there were stories of equality and inequality. Before democracy, there were stories of people and justice and injustice. Before psychology, there were stories of love and hatred and panic attacks and depression. If you have ever read, you must be very familiar with Crime and Punishment by Dostoevsky that deeply talks about depression and all. So everything that you and I today tagged as a common sense was first imagined, refined, and tested through language, through dialogues in a book. So literature literally teaches us how to live our life, and that brings me to two very important questions: why we must read, and how to claim back reading in the age of AI. Now, why we must read? We know the usual arguments, right? We know that reading improves our vocabulary, reading strengthens our language, reading makes us smarter, and yada yada yada. But that's not the point. Reading also changes how your brain actually works. So when you're reading a piece of fiction, you start imagining, even if the piece of fiction is not necessarily asking you to imagine anything. There are enough research that shows that if you have read about a certain object in a book, even if you haven't seen that object or situation, your mind automatically detects it and understands it when you come across it for the first time. You become a much smarter person in judging things and interpreting things. But this is my favorite bit, that research shows that understanding that when you read a piece of description of fiction, your brain is neurologically close to living it. For example, when you're reading a story in which your favorite character is running through a dungeon with some monster behind it, it activates the part of your brain that are linked with the act of running, as if you were running yourself. When you read, your brain cannot really differentiate between an experience and a description. That is why when you complete reading books like Thousand Splendid Suns, your heart rips apart. That is why when you complete reading any book by Stephen King, your body is filled with tons of goosebumps. That is why when you read some good romantic novel by John Green, there is a tickle in your body, butterflies in your tongue. Not because you are reading about it, but you are actually very close to experiencing the whole thing. And then comes how you actually read. So research by Stanford clearly shows that when you read slowly, actively, and more closely a piece of fiction, it activates your entire cognitive system, majorly the attention, the interpretation, and the judgment reasons. That is why you must have noticed that if you have a friend who is a very long time reader, he is someone who would be great at deciding what restaurant to go to eat. He would be someone who would be great at deciding what to do in the next step. They would be someone with a great attention span. They would be someone with great level of empathy, because they are good listeners, because they can actually listen to a conversation with complete attention. And finally, reading does something very radical, something that you and I need on a day-to-day basis. Did you know that reading only for 6 minutes every single day, and again, reading slowly, actively, and engaging more with the fiction text, only 6 minutes can reduce your stress levels by over 68%. I think we all are stressed, and we need a way to figure out how to let go of so much of stress. So rather than having a lot of medicines next to your side table, you can just have a good piece of fiction, read it for 6 minutes, and there you go. Reading also reduces your heartbeat, it slows down your nervous system, it calms your body. And one peculiar thing that reading also takes off the entire stress that is inside your muscles. That's why if you ever read a piece of fiction, or if you were ever forced to read a piece of fiction in your English class, you might have noticed that you suddenly feel more present in the moment. You feel more calmed down, right? There is clear physical impact when you read. But so that is why reading is important. Reading is not just about nostalgia. It's not just about characters. It's not just about plotting. Reading is also about emotional depth. It's about memory reinforcement. It's about cognitive resilience. It's about neural independence. And that is exactly why literature is not a luxury anymore. It is truly a survival tactic. But now the bigger question is, how do you claim back reading in the age of AI? Well, you can just pick a book and ask AI to generate a summary for you. You can ask AI that, hey, give me the important pointers, explain me the plot, tell me the characters, and everything about the book. How do you claim back reading in the age of AI? Now, I'm going to give you an ecosystem that I have been following for almost 2-3 years that has helped me to stick to reading. Now, the only thing about this ecosystem is that I do not promise that once you start using it, you will become an avid reader. that comes purely from discipline, from the act of actually picking up the book. But what you will feel is that every time you deny engaging with a piece of text or essay, a Substack post, or a fictional story, you will feel a sense of guilt, as if some form of joy that only you particularly can access has been completely taken away from you. So for getting started, how to claim back reading? First, create your own reading syllabus. Now this is pretty easy. Decide what are you going to read for the next quarter or the next 3 months. Pretty easy, right? You can do that in next 2 hours if you want to do that. So for instance, you decide that, hey, I'm going to read in the next 3 months, I'm going to read 5 books. You decide the names and ensure that the books that you're deciding or the books that you're picking up are a mix of all the genres, right? So there are a mix of fiction, non-fiction, mythology, sci-fi, horror, adventure, biographies, authors. Mix them up. So create or choose 5 books. The next time when you go to a bookshop, you would want to look for these books. Second comes, ensure that out of these 5 books, 1 book is a book that makes you feel stupid. That says to you, hey, you know absolutely nothing about me. Simply to put, a book that is completely out of the genre. So if you're someone who loves reading a lot of non-fiction, try picking up some biography and autobiography. If you're someone who loves reading biography or autobiography, go and pick some sci-fi, some horror. If you're someone who's a lot into horror, go and pick up some romance. Take a step back, try, feel that there is romance in the world. If you're someone who is into reading a lot of self-help books, all I can say is, please do not read self-help books. Please pick up fiction books. Please pick up more fiction books. We need more stories. We don't need more mentors to tell us that we need to get up at 5 a.m. in the morning and do 10-step routine to be a better version. Now that you have 5 books, one of them is out of your genre, it's out of your box. The third thing that you need to ensure is that you also pick up a diary. So we all have tons of diary. Pick up a diary and try to create your own quote book ecosystem. Now, what exactly is a quote book ecosystem? Every time you read, you would underline certain paragraphs, certain lines, but there would definitely be one sentence in a book that would leave you gasping on the floor. That would make you feel that, oh my God, now my life is not the same anymore. Something has fundamentally changed in my life. So every time you come across such line in a book, in a story, in a poetry, write it down in your quote book system. Simply because by the end of the year, you might not remember the book, you might not remember the story, but you will definitely have a stack of diary that will have quotes that have fundamentally changed you or to a very great extent changed you who you are as a person. So now you have 5 books. One of them is out of your genre. You also have a quote book ecosystem. Now comes, how do you actually read? That is a bigger question. I think one of the most familiar concepts that we have heard about reading is, hey, if you do not have time, if you're a college going person, if you have a lot of work, read 5 pages in the morning, 5 in the afternoon, 10 before you sleep. But I don't think we can ever read 10 pages because in one page we are completely passed out. Now, this is a great method, reading in batches, reading in fragments, but the only problem with this is that it is neurologically a very weak method. Why is it weak? Simply because your brain cannot understand or grasp the depth or the fullness of a piece of fiction if you're reading it in batches and fragments. To enter a state of narrative immersion, or what you all might know as the flow, you need to ensure that the context is similar for a very long time. So here the context is your piece of fiction, and then your attention is also sustained for a very long time. So generally, you need about good 30 minutes to enter into the state of flow. So next time when you pick up a book, don't read that in batches, don't read that in fragments. Take out 1 hour, and please don't tell me you do not have 1 hour in a day, guys. We are living in an age of self-love. So we all have an hour to us every single day. So take out 1 hour, go to your room, go to your sofa, go to your couch, and read without any form of absolute interruption. So now you have 5 books. One of them is out of your genre. You also have a quote book system. You have also settled down to read, and you have read for good 30, 45 minutes. And there comes a point where you can mentally, when you want to mentally give up, you are like, I can't read anymore. I'm done. I want to go back to the show that I was watching. I want to reply to this friend. I want to scroll for at least 10 minutes and see what's going, even if it doesn't matter to me. That is exactly the point where you read one more chapter. You read one more page. Just like when you're doing 10 push-ups, you do one more push. You do 12, you do 50 push-ups. So read beyond the point of discomfort. Read one more extra page. So now you have 5 books. One of them is out of your genre. One, you also have a codebook ecosystem. You have taken my advice. You have read for 1 hour, and you have also read for beyond the point of discomfort. Now comes the point where I would say something slightly controversial, but I will say it, that please read paperbacks. No Kindle, no PDF, no EPUBs, and do not tell me that you believe that listening to an audiobook is also overrated. That is pure marketing that is being told to you. So every time you go to a bookstore, pick up a book, get a paperback. Now I understand there's an accessibility factor, not every book is accessible, but how so much ever you can fit a book, pick up a book and read. Rather than hanging out at the cafe, doom scrolling, hang out in the library. Ask your friends to come to the library. Let's sit and read. Let's make library the next Gen Z hotspot that is across the world, across the country. So you read more and more books. That would be so much more cooler. Now you have taken my advice. You have 5 books for the next quarter. One of them is out of your genre. You also have a good book ecosystem going on. You have also read for good 45 minutes today. That is great. You have read for 5 more minutes. That is reading beyond the point of discomfort. You are also reading a paperback. It's not an EPUB. Finally comes what happens after I have done reading a book. What do? I have read one book completely. I have read Thousand Splendid Suns completely. I have read some self-knowledge book completely. We live in a world where if we do something and we do not produce anything out of it, our brain tags it as non-essential. We live in a world of content creation where even if you don't want to, we are being asked to create content in one form or the other. So why not create content out of it? And I'm not asking you to make a video or make a reel if you don't want to die. But everyone can take out a page and write a mini essay. So once you're done reading a book, take out 10 minutes, 20 minutes, and take a page and write a mini essay. Now, mini essay could be a simple review about the book. It could be 200 words. It could be a 5-mark question of reviewing this book, and you write in 1 page, and that is all your time, right? Talk about the character, talk about the plot, talk about the theme, talk about how you feel, talk about how do you relate this story to the bigger world, right? So by the end of reading a book, not only you have fully engaged with a story, a piece of fiction, you have also created a piece of content that satisfies your modern psychological need of creating content. So now you have something that is deeply personal to who you are as a person. And that, my dear friend, is something AI can never do for you. In fact, there are a lot of things that AI can never do, or AI will never feel. AI will never feel stupid at 2 a.m. in the morning. AI will never read a piece of poetry or some text of fiction and excerpt that will remind it of this one lover it once had some time ago. AI will never feel dumb or stupid or out of place or awkward or low. AI will never feel as if no one cares about it. AI will never feel as if no one wants to have a word with it. AI will never feel as if AI is angry or hungry. AI will never feel a sense of hatred towards something. All of this thing that we feel, the longing, the confusion, the anger, the rage, the hatred, the grief, the beauty, and the love, all of this makes us singularly human. So anything that protects our thoughts, that protects our memory, that protects our language, and essentially that protects our empathy, on which everything that we feel is based on, that thing stops being non-essential. And that is why literature is not a luxury. So if there is one act of rebellion and radical self-love that you can do today that asks for nothing and gives you everything, it is pick a damn book. Thanks.